Tester and election cycle. I'll have a closer look at some of the distinctions they drew with each other.
Israel rejoices as 4 of the hostages taken by Hamas on October 7th are rescued and returned home. I'm Naomi Ruckham with a look inside the complex mission as
about 6 o'clock on this. It's a little gloomy out depending on what side of the divide you're on.
You know, a little damp this morning. That's not all a bad thing. Remember, this is kind of our rainy period. And here over the course of the next couple of weeks, we'll start to dry things out pretty quickly.
We'll take it while we got it.
Yep, we need to enjoy it. Temperatures this morning quite comfortable into the 50s for most. Daytime temperatures should build nicely into the 70s. It is going to be a little cooler than it was at the beginning of the weekend, but we also have some rain showers in place today. Most of those showers should be out of here by 8, 9 o'clock. We'll be left with mostly sunny skies after that, and really pretty mild temperatures. Again, there are some showers in parts of the area this morning. Oop, we just spun around there. Temperatures holding into the 70s for the afternoon. Pleasant conditions, but we have warmer weather on the way. A look at that and your complete 7-day forecast in just a few minutes.
Alrighty, thank you, Matt. Well, Sunday morning, Democratic Senator Jon Tester and his Republican challenger Tim Sheehy went head-to-head in the first general election debate for one of the most closely watched races in the United States. Our MTN senior political reporter Jonathan Ambarin was a panelist for the debate and has a recap.
Several times during Sunday morning's debate here at Fairmont Hot Springs, Jon Tester and Tim Sheehy found themselves in agreement about which issues are key for Montana, but they laid out some clear differences in how they want to address them. The hour-long debate was sponsored by the Montana Broadcasters Association and the Greater Montana Foundation. Sheehy and Tester both said they're concerned about issues like housing costs and the threat from China. Both candidates accused their opponents of politicizing border policy, Sheehy calling President Biden's recent executive action pandering, and Tester saying Congress was wrong not to advance a proposed border deal earlier this year.
That bill went nowhere. Why? Because, quite frankly, people were told not to vote for it because they wanted to keep it a political issue in this country. It's one of the reasons my opponent said he wouldn't vote for the bill if he was in the Senate before the bill was even released to read. Truth is, I was sent to Washington, D.C. to solve problems. There was a solution. Congress failed.
This was an intentional border crisis, and now they're trying to fool us to say we're going to solve it before we get there. And time again, Joe Biden and Senate Democrats, including Jon Tester, have had the opportunity to shut down that border, pass legislation to do so. Instead, we've had messaging bills that are nothing but political theater that have continued this terrible border crisis. It's time to shut it down.
The two men also sparred over their positions on abortion.
I'll always protect the 3 rights for women: rape, incest, life of the mother. And at some point, the life of the baby does matter. At some point, when the baby's viable, when it can feel pain, when it can come out of the womb and be a healthy child to grow and become our next generation, that baby has rights too. And we have to have common sense protections for the baby's life as well.
For you to say that we're killing babies at 40 weeks is total BS. The bottom line is nobody's talking about government taxpayer payment for abortions. What we're talking about is who makes the decision. Do you want a politician or a bureaucrat or a judge to make the decision? If you do, vote for him. If you want the woman to make the decision, vote for me.
Sheehy said Montanans want to see change in Washington, D.C., and sought to tie Tester to the policies of the Biden administration. Tester said there are issues he has and will push back against the administration on, but said he's proud of things like the infrastructure bill passed 2 years ago.
This agenda coming out of this White House has been empowered by the Democrat-controlled Senate, and primarily by a deciding vote that could have stopped so many of these bills, but 95% of the time supported them. Jon Tester and I can both be good men who want the best for the future. We can also disagree on how that should be achieved. And right now, Democrat control of the White House and the Senate has led our nation to the worst condition we've been in 40 years.
Something's been talked about my entire life and never been done. To make sure every road, bridge, people are wired with broadband, electrical transmission grid is up to 21st century standards. Things like the PACT Act, which deals with toxic exposure for our veterans, never been passed. If you want to say I'm deciding to vote to defeat that, I think would be a bad decision.
The general election is now less than 5 months away. At Fairmont Hot Springs, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
It's a sight that's forever etched into the minds of many Montanans, rivers and creeks spilling over their banks. And this week marks the 2-year anniversary of the historic floods across southern Montana. And with water levels rising once again, many fear that it's only a matter of time, but when another flood occurs. Our MTN's Haley Monaco has a look at the efforts that are being done to try to prevent this from ever happening again.
Rotary Park isn't usually underwater, but it is. As temperatures rise, so do the water levels. This is causing concern for some residents who were here during the historic 2022 flooding. But local officials say there's nothing to be worried about. A sound that is usually considered peaceful is now a trigger for many.
I can't guarantee that nothing's going to happen, but I feel very comfortable that what's going to happen won't resemble what we've seen in the past.
Nearly 2 years to the week, Rock Creek broke its banks, taking out bridges, roads, and destroying homes.
There's a little bit of PTSD and people see the water rise and they get concerned and they get nervous again.
Rotary Park is a significant spot.
Because this is where the breach was.
Went to his basement a bit.
Trinity Ferguson's family member had water flood into his Red Lodge home, but the damage was minimal.
But really it wasn't the negative impact that a lot of people felt around here.
The negative impact that the city of Red Lodge is trying to avoid ever seeing again.
So we have multiple agencies working together. We're touching base regularly, we're communicating, we all have each other's contact information. We're monitoring the situation. Right now, they have not given us any indication for concern.
While there is no major rain in the forecast during these warm days, which contributed to the floods in 2022, Mayor Dave Westwood says there are new processes in place if another flood were to occur.
We'll utilize the siren that folks in town are used to hearing go off at noon every day for about 10 seconds. It's going to sound different. Probably going to be 3 cycles of it, or something that's certainly a different tone than what they're used to hearing.
Westwood says residents should be signed up for Carbon Alert and Code Red, too. But as of now, cause for concern is minimum. Crews recently flew a drone along Rock Creek, double-checking that there aren't spaces that may be breached by rising water.
You can also see across the bank that the fence is twice as high as what it used to be, and so that gives us there's a significant amount of air between where the water level is and where the road level is. I have a very high level of confidence in the fence that's been installed that the construction workers are.
A peaceful sound that many hope will stay where it's supposed to be. In Red Lodge, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
After 8 long months, the families of 4 Israeli hostages that were taken by Hamas on October 7th are now back with their families. The complex rescue mission resulted in heavy fire, killing hundreds of Palestinians on the ground, according to the Hamas. CBS's Naomi Ruckham shares a message from the families of the former hostages as they keep up their fight to bring all of them home.
After more than 245 days of prayer, the families of 4 Israeli hostages kidnapped to Gaza by Hamas on October 7th finally embraced their loved ones. 26-year-old Noah Argamani, who was taken from the Nova Music Festival during the attack, returned home on her father's birthday. After the mission, the rescued hostages and their families pleaded for the safe return of the hostages remaining in Gaza.
There are still 120 hostages in Gaza, and we want a deal now. We want them to come back home as soon as possible.
The operation to free the hostages left an Israeli commando dead after the Israeli military says its forces came under heavy fire during the daytime mission. According to Hamas, more than 270 Palestinians were also killed. The group does not differentiate between civilian and militant casualties. In another setback for the civilians of Gaza, amid safety concerns, the UN World Food Program has paused distribution of humanitarian aid from an American-built pier in the territory. Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to the Middle East today with no firm response on a ceasefire since the White House made a proposal 10 days ago. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
And Secretary Blinken's trip will include visits to Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Qatar. During his visit, he will also ask the leadership and urge Hamas to accept the proposed ceasefire deal that's on the table, which calls for the release of more hostages and a temporary pause in the fighting. Sources say that the militant group is discussing the deal and could respond later today or by tomorrow. And back a little closer to home, Zoo Montana's beloved wolf Simpson, who was found abandoned by his pack back in 2020, is now gaining major attention across the country following a rare diagnosis that required yet another surgery. RMTN's Kelsey Boggs visited with the zoo to check in on Simpson and learn about how his recovery is going.
Zoo Montana is home to two wolves, Onyx and Simpson, but one of them is more unique than the other. Simpson recently underwent his second surgery.
Our wolves are they're special, right?
Zoo Montana's brothers from other mothers.
They have amazing stories behind them, and they're just such a majestic animal.
Onyx and Simpson are a special pair, brought together under unique circumstances.
Simpson was found abandoned by his pack. FWP did an amazing job of looking for his pack. They knew exactly what pack he was from, couldn't find the pack.
Simpson was taken to Zoo Montana, where he originally thrived, but then,
after a couple months, started noticing some strange things going on, took him in for a CT scan, and come to find out he has congenital hydrocephalus, which essentially is water on the brain.
A rare condition.
It's a cerebral spinal fluid that builds up in their brain and causes pressure. And so when he gets overly excited, that builds up and it makes him really sick and can ultimately kill him.
It requires a unique care plan.
We ended up taking him the first time around over to Washington State University to have a shunt implanted in his brain that drains the fluid from his brain cavity to his abdomen.
But that shunt was knocked out of place.
After about 4 years of being a wolf and wrestling and doing all the things wolves do, that dislodged recently. And so we made the tough decision to what were we going to do next, and so decided to take him for a second surgery.
The now 5-year-old gray wolf is recovering phenomenally after an 8-hour surgery.
By putting the shunt in, we know it'll buy him at least 4 to 5 more years, which will take him to kind of that normal life expectancy of a wolf.
He's inspiring others nationwide.
The photos and the stories that we're getting from community members that have been impacted by hydrocephalus themselves. Simpson has a lot of incredible fans that understand what he's going through.
Just none of his own kind.
I don't know of any cases of a wolf undergoing this type of surgery to put a shunt in the brain. It definitely is unique. It just makes him our incredibly special wolf.
In Billings, Kelsey Boggs, MTN News.
Oh, the cone of shame.
Yeah,
even on wolves.
Right. Even on wolves, that's right. But they're doing good work.
They are. I will say, yesterday was a nice day. I sat outside for a little bit, got a little tan.
Pleasant temperatures yesterday into the 50s, and then we were seeing some rain showers at times. The rain showers continue this morning, but they're moving out quickly. I'm going to break down your complete forecast and talk about what the week has in store and a look at your Father's Day weekend that's coming up.
All right, looking forward to it, and we'll take a closer look at the water fight between the United States and Mexico as the Rio Grande Valley continues to dry up. We'll have more on that coming up in a couple of minutes.